Verse 11 picks up right where verse 10 left off, reading, "Who must be silenced because they are upsetting whole families, teaching things they should not teach for the sake of sordid gain." Now, because we're picking up in the middle of Paul's thought, we need to already be familiar with verse 10, in which Paul identifies the Judaizers, or those of the circumcision, as teaching contradictory to the teachings of the apostles. These contradictory teachers, Paul tells us here in verse 11, must be silenced by the overseers of the church on Crete, and then he tells us why. He says that these teachers are upsetting whole families by teaching things they ought not teach for the sake of sordid gain. Now, if we are reading Scripture carefully, we know that we have already seen this phrase, sordid gain, earlier in verse 7. In verse 7, Paul says that the overseer must not be someone fond of sordid gain. This clues us into the fact that Paul is setting up a contrast between the men he wants Titus to appoint as overseers and the Judaizers who are teaching in contradiction to the apostles. The Judaizers, Paul says, are not only false teachers and teaching false doctrines, but they teach from impure motives as well. Their teachings are damaging families, pulling them apart. And we already know that one of the important qualifications for church overseer is someone who maintains his family. So with verse 10 and 11, we now see more clearly why Paul has put these stipulations in place for the church overseers on the island of Crete. He wants Titus to strategically appoint overseers who are qualified and capable of dealing with these false teachers, and he's going to continue to elaborate on these matters in the next few verses.